And
we're live.
Yep, I'm looking for the on the group to see if it's
working.
Yet. Yep, here we go.
Yeah. I think, as always, we just give it a few moments.
Yeah.
So people can just join.
I'm looking at it on my phone. It's froze up.
I think we have 10 people already. Yeah, 10 people we are watching. It's a little bit spooky music on the video.
Yeah.
Mike, you look like prison.
For some reason I don't. Is it showing up on your phone on Facebook?
Live?
Yeah.
Let me check. Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
Live. Yeah. Maybe you just have a bad connection.
Yeah, maybe so. Oh, here it is. Okay. Mine's froze up though for some reason. Is yours frozen or is it?
No, mine's looking good.
Okay.
So I think we just start. I think we have 21 people live, and yeah, the rest. Oh, do we give it one more minute?
Yeah, let's give it a minute. But for whoever's already on here, there's a link right above this video on Facebook, and I'll try to show it. You should be able to see it, but it's right there. Anyway, it only takes about 10 seconds, and if you click on that link and then give StreamYard permission to use your Facebook profile picture or name on your comments, then we can share them on the screen here with the questions. Otherwise, it just says Facebook user, and it looks generic, which is fine, but...
So it would be pretty awesome if you just click on the link, you just give StreamYard the permission to use your name and your profile picture, and then we can see your names while you ask questions on the stream, so that would make life a little bit easier for us all, I think. But if not, that's also okay.
Hide the names to protect the innocent. I'll type in your name anyway so they know who you are regardless. So you might as well just go ahead and nothing anonymous here.
All right. I think we start. That's
I am looking. Okay, I'm seeing the videos, making sure I can see what's there.
So, hello guys, welcome to the third episode of our little podcast. As you maybe saw the video I posted and in the group, our topic today is the magical box feeding, because everybody talks a little bit about the magic of the box, and to be honest, it's just a box. But we will explain today how we use it, why we use it, what you can use it for. I mean, if you have enough imagination, you can use it for nearly everything. And I just made a little bit on the whiteboard the measures, because everybody's constantly asking how big is the box, how big must the box be, and it's just 30 by 30 by 30. So nothing special about that. So, Mike, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, sure. So let me pull up. Working on being organized here. All right. So box feeding. I'm going off notes here. So we're going to talk about why, how, what's it used for, the magical measurements of the box. I think you probably already mentioned that maybe. So, a.k.a. the dopamine box. And I know there's a joke in other podcasts about how big the box is, and obviously, Dominic has the measurements up there, but I think for me, the size of the box doesn't matter. It could be anything, but for those of you who utilize a clack, these measurements are perfect because the clack can fit either inside of it or on top of it. But really it's inconsequential. It could be, I need to put my phone on do not disturb. Okay. It could be, it's probably a client listening to me on here saying I'm putting my phone on do not disturb when I turn their call off. So probably hear about that. But anyhow, it could be a big bowl. It could be anything that the dog can just get his head in to really past his eyes so that he can essentially, the box can help him be environmentally blind or indifferent to, the environment. And really, the box is just an arbitrary command. It could be anything. The box is just generic. It's an exercise outside of anything else that you have to perfect, whether that be a position, heeling, a front, or, whatever. But it helps you to toughen a dog, to environmental distractions. It helps you to teach a dog to stay on task. And I think most of all, it gives the dog a place to focus on a task so that reward can be paired with pressure so that a dog knows how to respond to pressure. And then that anticipation that is cued by the pressure is what triggers dopamine. So the anticipation of a reward that's cued by pressure, obviously. So
maybe you just can explain how you use it, or why do you use it with your own dogs, or why do you use it with a client's dog? Give us just an example.
Yeah. So I don't use it much with client dogs, but I use it on my dogs. And when they were a little bit younger, they're still very young, but when they were a little bit younger, I used it a lot more, and I need to really get back on it. But how I use it is for me, it's about teaching a dog, like I said just a second ago, and I'll just keep it simple, to help the dog learn to stay focused on the command or whatever he's supposed to be doing, and to build anticipation of a reward in response to pressure. So, for example, and I'll show a video a second. I think the best video to start with is probably your video, but we'll see in a video that I show. I want the dog to know that there's a reward and putting his head into the box. And I like to really initially teach that through free shaping, no different than teaching in a scent tube, a dog to go over and just sniff. And then kind of by approximation, he gets his head in there. Then I click, the dog comes to me. Then the dog has to try a little bit harder, so his head's in there a little bit longer. And then I click, he comes to me. And then so the dog tries again. He knows what he's supposed to do by this time. He knows that putting his head in the box brings a reward. So he goes over, he tries again, puts his head in the box. I make him wait a little bit longer. And then I click, he comes to me. The dog learns that the longer he waits, reward's coming. And then all of a sudden, the dog's head's in the box. And instead of me clicking and the dog coming to me, boom, I drop food in the box. And then so the dog has learned that by keeping his head in the box, reward comes. At first, the pressure is simply his head in the box. And then his head's in the box again, another lesson. He's waiting on the food that he knows is coming. I might click for him to come to me, or to release him from the box, or I might drop food in the box. His head's in the box because he knows he's anticipating food to go in the box. And then from there, I will. My routine now is I put the dog on the pedestal, and let me first say this, that you always have to stay within the framework, the legal framework of your country. So I'm talking about for here where I'm at in the United States, stateside. So don't get this wrong. If anybody else is commenting or whatever, I'm speaking for myself and how I do it. But you can apply any kind of pressure, and we'll see that shortly. But how I do it is I'll take and I put the dog on the pedestal, and I put the collar on him, very, very low level, probably even not even perceivable. But I'm going to assume that it is because I had it on the really lower than the lowest factory setting for the collar that I use, which is the Chameleon 3B. But so I put him on the pedestal, put the collar on, and then I'm just a few feet away. That I know that when I release him, he's going to the box, because we've done it, 100 times already. So there's food in the box. He's amped up about it. And then so I start tapping on the collar, applying pressure, release him. As soon as he gets to the box or in the box, boom, I release the pressure. So now his head's in the box, and I add just tap pressure, drop food, tap pressure, drop food, tap pressure, drop food. Not too quick together because that can lead to other mistakes. But the dog quickly learns that pressure means food's coming. Pressure could be me tapping the box with my foot. Pressure could be me just reaching over and tapping him on the back a little bit. But in this case, with the e-collar, it's pressure, food, pressure, food, pressure, food. And so if the dog happens to raise his head out of the box, then what do? Right? Pressure. And the pressure makes him anticipate the food, and he knows that when his head's in the box, when the food coming. So when he pulls his head out of the box, I add pressure, boom, he anticipates the food, so his head goes in the box. When his head goes in the box, I release the pressure and drop food in the box. NePoPo, right? So what this turns into is the dog learns that pressure means put my head in the box. Pressure means putting my head in the box. So, or stay on command. And how this translates to training, I'm just going to use the heel command, for example. So now how I do it, again, I use a clack clack board. I'm standing next to it. My dog already knows the clack clack board's loaded, right? So the dog, just like the box. So I had the dog on the clack clack board. He's got the e-collar on, and he already knows the position. So I'm just layering pressure into the position, right? So I'm on the clack clack board. I'm standing next to a clack clack board. So in other words, the clack clack board is to my left in the heel position. I toss food against the wall in my training room. The dog goes after the food. As soon as I see he's, a couple pieces of kibble, he picks it up. He turns around, and when he turns around to come to me, he knows I'm standing next to the clack clack board. That's his cue to get in the heel position on the clack clack board. Just like I would apply pressure going to the box, I apply pressure now coming to the clack clack board to get into position. So there's pressure. He gets on the clack clack board, turns around to the heel position. Pressure goes off, and he gets the food again. NePoPo. So again, it's all relative. The box could be healing. The box could be whatever. We start off with the box so that we can kind of perfect it, teach pressure, build dopamine into it, and also the box allows us to add environmental pressures once the dog knows. So the dog's head's in the box, a little bit of noise. The dog's head comes out of the box during the noise. What happens? Add pressure just to cue the dog back into the box. Eventually, the dog stops bringing his head out for that noise. You can add another noise or another environmental pressure. Blah, 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 blah. What does that mean in the heel position? Well, now you're going down the middle of the IGP field. The dog's in position, and the gunshot goes off, right? Instead of your dog knows that pressure precedes. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. So I'll stop. I'll let you talk, and we'll go through some of the videos, and be able to see this kind of in succession.
Yeah, I think it's good if you just show your video that you made,
Okay.
so the people understand what you mean exactly by using the e-collar with the pressure going into the box.
Okay. So we'll bring up the video.
That.
All right. Let me open up my phone again. All right. So we'll start off. Here he is. That's the pedestal. You can see it's just a box with another box, but it's got a clack board in it. So I just put the collar on them. What you'll hear is what you're going to see. I actually have my finger kick paired to two collars, the collar that's on him and the collar that's hanging on the stand that's holding the camera that's taking this video. So when you hear the beep signifies e-collar pressure. So you know when I'm applying pressure and when I'm letting off.
Okay.
So we'll start. You'll see how it. Here we go. Head in the box, pressure goes off. Pressure, food. Pressure, food. Pressure, food. A little bit of leash pressure, food. And this is Venger. Pressure. All the way to the box.
And as soon as the dog drops the head in the box, you stop the pressure and you add food. NePoPo. Start the pressure again till the dog is in the box, and then you add food. And you click the dog out of the box, and again pressure till the dog goes in the box. Yeah, I think that gives a little bit of clarification how you use the box. And yeah, of course, you just shape in the beginning. You shape that, so you use indirect reward, right? To just shape like every other exercise. And,
yeah, well, I loaded it first, you know, a cheat, I guess, kind of just by feeding him out of the box when he's a puppy, just letting him see me drop food in there, and then he knew. So
yeah, so that's exactly how I start. So to be honest, if I have a puppy, I don't use that measure of the box, because if it's 8 weeks old, it's a little bit too big and the dog can't fit in really. So I have a little bit a smaller box. I don't know the measures. I think 20 by 20 by 20, but it really doesn't matter. So just the dog can go inside. And yeah, I start always with just feeding the dog out of the box. Just throw food in it, let the dog go to the box by himself. And that's how I load up, like you said, the box. And in my opinion, it just, in the beginning, it teaches the dog always to accept pressure and go through the pressure, because the first pressure is the dog can't see anything in the box. So he has to go in a dark room with his box and he can't see anything. He just has to concentrate on the food that's coming, and that's already inside the box. And the second pressure is when he goes in the box, his body is always under pressure from the box. So that's also a little bit pressure. And yeah, I just do that for a few weeks, so the dog's really hyped up for the box. And yeah, later I teach the dog a little bit to accept the pressure inside the box, and I really make dopamine on the box. So the dog's really hyped up to go to the box, and that's exactly what we saw in the video. And I can just show it here one more time. We can just watch it with my older dog that's already a little bit experienced in that. He does it a long time. Or with, I think we start with my puppy. So where is it? There.
Yeah, these are really nice examples.
As you can see, the dog's pulling to the box, and just dog has to go through the pressure to go inside the box, and as soon as the dog is inside the box, the pressure is released, and then I add food. So this is how I start off with puppies. So they learn to accept a little bit pressure, and they must fight through the pressure to go inside the box. And later, I make the dogs crazy for the box. That looks like this. They throw food in the box. The dog has to fight to get inside the box, and as soon as the dog is inside the box, I release the pressure, and then I add food. So I think we have a little bit longer version of the video. Show something else.
I think your black and white version's longer. The demo one, it's down there too.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just have a look. Sorry. So see the dogs pulling into the box, and I release the pressure. I add food, and after that, when with more experience, you can see I add a little bit leash pressure. Pull the dog out, the dog has to stay in, fight to stay in, and then I add food again. So this kind of makes the dog accept the pressure from your leash. And because I don't use e-collars, because that's not allowed in Germany, I always stay in my legal framework. I teach him with a flat collar to accept the pressure, pull a little bit out of the box, and he fights to stay inside the box. And that's how I teach him a little bit pressure. So that's basically what I do with the box. And also later, I saw a comment that was made here. I just show it short. Some dogs need the box, the dopamine box, for a place to relax. And that's what I do later. I mean, it's a little bit, let's say, dumb to first get lots of dopamine for the box and then later calm them down. But later I use it in the same way as a pedal stool, as a place where the dog has to rest. So you gotta put his head inside the box and just wait till the next command comes. And that builds a little bit stability. And that's also the thing between motivation and concentration. It's always, you gotta find the fine balance between motivation and concentration, because when you have too much motivation, you don't have concentration. If you have too much concentration, the dog looks flat, so it's not motivated enough. Yeah, that was a little bit how I use the box, but there are many other ways
seeing
you
your
use
dogs.
the box. Sorry?
Seeing your dogs pull, I think that builds my dopamine. Pretty intense.
Yeah, but yeah, you can use the box in a lot of different ways. You can build confidence, you can build dopamine, you can make, like you said, the dog environmentally blind. If you use it when you have a dog that's afraid of cars, you just put the box right next to a street where a lot of cars drive by and just feed them inside the box, and the dog doesn't see the cars, he just hears them, and he has to accept that to stay in the box to get food. So that's what you can do. Like I do, I teach leash pressure. There are a lot of people that also use the box as a healing position. I personally have never done that, but maybe I will try that. And also, like maybe you remember in Gold School, we use the food box for tracking. So the tracking food box doesn't have a bottom. Maybe you want to explain that, how we did that in Gold School?
Yeah, so I have one. I can grab it real quick just to show it. One thing I want to mention real quick, and then I'll show the video, and then while that video is playing, I'll grab the box. You mentioned that you don't use a box this size for your puppies, and then you mentioned tracking, so it's kind of funny that's going to tie together. But you don't have to have the box is good for teaching environmental blindness, but to teach your dog to kind of pull toward, to fight through the pressure to get the reward, you can use something where even, a bowl or a box, even big enough for the dog for the puppy, to see what's in there, what he's actually pulling towards. So Lars Lentz actually does this I'll show this video and then I'll go grab. I'll disappear for a second and grab that.
Wait, I just restarted the video.
You can stop that.
See that small box, and he teaches the dog also to pull to that and accept a little bit the leash pressure from behind. So it doesn't always have to be a box with 30 by 30 by 30. People always use the tools different, and everything I think has a reason if you know what you do. That's how he uses the box, let's say. Yeah, and we just wait for Mike to come back.
I just dropped it on my ankle. So here's one.
Sorry.
Here's one. It's just a box with kind of an elongated hole in the bottom, about the size of it, so shaped like a footprint for tracking. And then, but it doesn't have to be like that. You know, it could just be like this, just a box without a bottom. So there we go. Those are dusty. It means I haven't been using them like I need to. But,
and so basically what you do with that, you just put it on the ground, and what you do?
Yeah. So once the dog knows to keep his head in the box, a box that has a bottom, whether it be in your training room or wherever you train at, you know, then you would take this one without a bottom on it, and I would disturb the ground a little bit, just like you would if you were tracking, you know, just kind of stomp the grass area a little bit, and then put this over the disturbed ground, and then just repeat the process, you know, the same thing the dog already knows to do. So the difference is now when his head's going into the box or her head's going into the box, they smell the broken ground, you know, the broken grass, vegetation, the turned up dirt, whatever it is. And so you just start to make that association in the mind, you know, of the broken ground means food's coming. And then especially when you're adding the leash pressure too, because now you're really implementing tracking into it. You know, you have the leash pressure, the long line, the dog's pulling on it, pressure, and then drop the food, pressure, drop the food. So anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a way of teaching the dog tracking. I mean, 1,000 ways to teach the dog tracking, and yeah, I mean, if it works, it works.
Right. Yeah, and the dog already knows that, you know, his job is to keep the head in the box. So if he associates the smell and the you know, the scent of the broken ground with staying on target, now that translates into when your dog's on the track, they know not to take their head off the track, not out of the box, because there's not a box, but don't take your head off the track. And then leash pressure means food's coming. So leash pressure to the next portion of food, you know, the next step. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a lot better at explaining this than I am at doing it. That's got to change, huh?
I think so too.
So
we have one more video that we want to show you guys. And
yeah, this is you want to explain the video, what's happening?
Yeah, sure. I think we just watch it, and then we will talk about it, right?
Okay, yeah. So in this video you'll see, this is Antonia's video. Shout out to her for some excellent box work here. What you'll see is she's kind of past all the preliminary stages, and now her dog knows the job, which is to keep his head in the box in anticipation of a reward coming, and no matter what's happening. And you'll see she adds in a tremendous amount of environmental pressure, and the dog is just rock solid. So
so as you can see, she adds a little bit of pressure with food bowl. Dog stays in, concentrate inside the box. He's environmentally blind to the noises. She adds physical pressure. Dog stays in. pulls a little bit on the neck, and then she adds food. So the dog must go through the pressure to get the reward. And I'm not sure if that's the dog that was afraid of the stick.
Yeah, she's putting it on.
A lot of pressure on the dog.
So another way this translates, last week we talked about when we had our, well, I guess it wasn't last week, our last episode, Eric mentioned his dog was on the track, and I think you had the video. Did you put the link to the video in the on the Facebook group where the cow is okay? So that the cow would be pressure, a distraction, and rather than the distraction or pressure making the dog, drawing the dog's attention to itself or to the cow or to the noise from the actual job or keeping its head in the box or the track, it actually signals through classical conditioning, it signals that a reward's coming. So pressure and noise and distractions is actually a cue to stay on track rather than to pull the dog, out of behavior. So it's pretty ingenious. It's NePoPo.
Yeah. All right. So we have some questions from the group, and I'm just going to summarize what I think Jennifer meant. And what she basically said is that if you give pressure and if you touch the dog the same time you add food, that could lead maybe to resource guarding on food. And that's also something Bart explained in Gold School and in Silver School. Yes, that can happen. So you got to make sure if that happens, you got to put the dog away. And as you maybe know, we always train with existential food. So if the dog shows any sign of resource guarding when you do the box work, you just gotta put the dog away. You just gotta make sure that the dog knows, okay, if I show any sign of aggression when my handler or anybody else touches me, I'm gonna just get put away, and that's it for today's training and no more food. So this is something that can happen. Yes, that's correct. You want to say anything about that? Maybe you have personal experience with that?
No, hang on. Sorry.
You're good.
You can go that way if you want.
We have another question from Toon. That's a friend of mine I know personally, and he's a dog psychologist, so he always asks very, very tricky questions. And to be honest, some parts of that I really don't know, because I'm not into that so deep into dog psychology like you are, maybe. But maybe that's a possibility if you put you on the show and you can talk a little bit about dog psychology. So, but what I can tell you is the question is, does high focus on generating dopamine in the body brain make the dog a junkie or a workaholic? So in my opinion, yes, we make our dogs dopamine junkies, but we do that on purpose because we want hyped up dogs. We want happy dogs that always perform with heart and soul. And if you have a level of dopamine, the dogs are highly motivated. So that's just my opinion. What do you think, Mike?
Absolutely. Same.
Sounds good. Yeah, just we go over a little bit over the questions I saw in the comments.
Yeah, I'm seeing quite a bit. So one comment here is looking, I'm just going to put this up on the...
Yeah, I was going to show the same, yeah.
Gotcha. Looking at the dog's tail, he is not happy at all in the video of Antonia. Dopamine in anxious dogs can strengthen the anxiety. I would say that just because the dog's tail, often when a dog's tail is down, it can be a sign of anxiety, but that's not. It can also mean a dog's focused, super focused. So it doesn't always mean, that a dog is anxious. It could mean that the dog's anticipation and, in anticipating a reward or a release. And so I think that's the case here. I don't think that it's strengthening the anxiety here. The dog's not really anxious. He knows the job. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And I have my puppy right now, my female. She's barely wagging with her tail. So not because she's a poor dog and she's always in a bad mood. I think some dogs just don't are like that dopamine waggling tail dogs. And also, if the dog's very focused, you can also see that oftentimes while the dogs are tracking, and Eric explained that also, that if a dog is really concentrated, really focused on the track, the tail is not constantly wagging. The tail it's not under the belly, but it's just a little bit down. So that's not always a sign for anxiety or fear or whatever you want to call it. So that's my opinion.
Sure.
Yeah. I have another question.
The dog shows passion going into the box. He was happy about going into the box, and then came the focus. So the dog, it wasn't out of anxiety. Go ahead.
So I have another question. That's a good question, actually. Can you guys talk about when you actually start to let the dog out of the box and how you release them out of it? So, in fact, that we don't want our dogs to put their heads out of the box by themselves. That's a good question. So what I do when I want to end the session, I just click them out of the box like you did in your video. So the dog is not used to putting his head out of the box when they end the session by themselves, because then you can punish that later if you let the dog do that on his own. But therefore you need a charge clicker, or you can just click release with food, or you just say a command for or ball or whatever you want to do. You click and throw a ball. Just make sure that you end the session and not the dog by himself.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. So in the entire, a lot of people use click release in the NePoPo. We primarily use click release. So that's in any behavior. So even in the box, and you want whatever you're teaching in the box, you want that to be able to translate to the dog's other skills. So let's just go back to tracking again. If pressure means keep your head in the box and pressure means keep your head on the track, then my dog's tracking. I don't want him coming off on his own, but I can click and release the dog off the track. So the dog never knows when the click's coming. The dog doesn't know if he needs to stay in behavior, how long he needs to stay in behavior. But he always stays fired up. He stays motivated because he knows that if he stays on track, whether it's on the track or in the box, the click could come at any time. The reward in the box could come in at any time, or the click release to the reward can come at any time.
Yeah. So like we always say, there are a lot of different ways to teach, a lot of ways to teach pressure, a lot of ways to charge your e-collar if you're in a country where it's allowed. And there are a lot of ways to, teach tracking, whatever you want to call it, healing. It just depends on how you like to train and if you understand what you do. That's always the most important thing, that you know what you do, because otherwise you can create problems like that comment that mentioned resource guarding with food aggression. If you always train with existential food and food becomes existential for the dog, there's a high possibility that there will be food aggression later. So always make sure you know what you do. And if you don't know exactly what you do, just reach out to a trainer that knows about what you want to train, and just go for it.
Yeah, and I think a key to that, to preventing resource guarding, is your timing as well. So you don't want to, if your dog has an issue with resource guarding, then I wouldn't, while he's eating in the box, I wouldn't, touch him. But maybe your timing has to be right in the box regardless. If you're adding pressure, so let's just say pressure is touching the dog on the back. You touch the dog, drop the food, touch the dog, drop the food, touch the dog, drop the food. If you do that too quick, then it's not going to be easy for the dog to decipher what's coming first. Is dropping the food coming before the pressure, or is the pressure coming before dropping the food? What you don't want is the food predicting the pressure, because you don't want a reward to mean that something negative's coming. You want the pressure to predict the food. So you want the dog to understand that the pressure means that something good is coming. So if you have a dog that's resource guarding, what you don't want to do is the dog's got his head in the box and he's eating. And while he's in the process of eating, you're touching him. So because, now it's interfering. If the dog knows that your touch or your pressure or your voice predicts a reward, then your dog's not going to get ticked about the pressure. So it takes time to develop, but you just have to work on your timing and be careful with your timing. Be thoughtful. Don't just go into your training session sloppy. That can happen with people who just start training, and it can also happen with seasoned trainers who are too comfortable with the process. And so you just, you start going through the motions, and before you realize it, you've got just the whole sequence of classical conditioning. It's just all thrown out of whack. It takes putting thought into it. Any more?
All right, I think we go over one more question, and
okay.
I think then we gotta end that for today, and maybe we do a second episode.
Yeah.
And that's such a big topic.
Yeah, it is. And if you have any box feeding questions, comments, little videos or whatever, drop them in the comments. We can comment them. It's on cue discussions in modern dog training. So this is meant to be a discussion amongst all of us. So chime in. The more the merrier. We all learn from each other, right? So one more question.
All right. Yeah, I think we'll just go with that. I'm just going to explain that a little bit, in my opinion, and then we end that with that. What is the end goal with the box? When do you know that you reach something substantial? I'm not 100% sure what substantial means, but the
significant.
end goal. Oh, okay. So what's the end goal with the box? I don't think there's a real end goal where you can say, now I reach something, I can end that. It always depends what you want to train with the box. Let's say you have a fearful dog that is afraid of cars. Then the end goal would be that you train inside the box that your dog's environmentally blind to cars. And the end goal would be that you can walk on the street and the dog's ignoring the cars, or is not scared or aggressive on cars anymore. That would be the end goal for that. But you always got to decide that what you want to train, and then what's the end goal. So
yeah, so right. For example, you take somebody who's, and I know our time's about up. We have about 60 seconds left, but you take somebody who has PTSD from like gunshots, let's say war, and I'm not diminishing this severity of this, but I'm just saying for the sake of argument, a gunshot makes them trip out. So now you put them in a room, right? So let's just say the room is the box. On a really, really low level, the sound of a gunshot is probably not going to trigger them. But what you could do is counter condition it, right? They're in the room all by themselves on a very, very small level, tape recorder, whatever, the sound of a very low gunshot, and then boom, a reward, something that's very significant. $100. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, right? Raise it up a little bit. Boom, $100. The more positive associations that are made with that noise, the dog, the person, not dog, but the person would not only, rather than just being even environmentally blind to the noise, he would actually be happy about it. So again, it just what he said, if a dog is triggered by a car going by, box feed with the sound of cars going by. And rather than the dog being nervous of the car, the dog's going to associate the sound of the car means food's coming. So it just all depends on the box can be applied to any behavior. The principles of the box. It simply teaches a dog that pressure predicts a reward, and it builds dopamine in the entire process through the anticipation of a reward coming. So
yeah, I think that's it. Huh? So if you have any questions,
Thank
just leave it in the comments, show us your videos, and we can have discussions in the group. That's all it for today.
Thanks. See you next time.
Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.